We'll go online now. So can y'all hear me online?
Yes, sir.
All right, fantastic. So we just did introductions in the room. So if we could go around the room inside of the virtual platform, just go ahead and state your name, what organization you're with, and I'll call out the name here quickly. So we got Aaron Jacobs.
I am with Centennial Hospital, Emergency Management Coordinator.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Michelle Burnett.
Good afternoon. I'm the district epidemiologist for the Norfolk Health Department.
Thank you very much. Miss April Copeland.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Dan has said, I'm April Copeland, Lieutenant of Special Projects for the Chief's Office. Glad to be here.
Thank you, ma'am. Glenn Smith.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Glenn Smith. I'm the Director of Life Safety and Security at Harbor's Edge Retirement Community at 1 Colley Avenue.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate you being here. And Ed Haran.
Yep, I'm Ed Hanrahan, Public Awareness Specialist, Virginia Natural Gas.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. And Jeff Howell?
Hi, I'm Jeff Hull with Eggleston Services Safety Officer.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Mark Salmon? Are you with us, Mark? All right, we'll move down to Michael Mink.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am the Emergency Management Officer for Naval Station Norfolk.
Thank you very much. And Mark just chimed in. Thank you so much for EVMS. And we have Donna Price on the line.
I'm Donna Price. I'm with the Virginia Department of Health, Office of the Chief Medical Examiner.
Thank you, Donna. Appreciate you being here. Blair Simpson.
Yes, I'm here for Blythe Scott, the Commissioner of Revenue's Office for the City of Norfolk.
Thank you, Blair. And last but certainly not least, Susie. Can you hear us, Susie? Are you online? All right, thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for everybody for their introductions. I want to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker. Some of you may know Andy. He had worked for the city of Norfolk for 25 years as a Norfolk police officer before transitioning over to his new role with the Virginia Beach Department of Emergency Management, where his role is now a response and recovery project manager. So I'll let him get more into that in just a moment. But for his experience, he has 11 years as a member of the Hanter-Redemption Management Team. He's a credentialed operations section chief, along with a divisional group supervisor. He's an operations section lead representative. He's on the training committee. And he's had national deployments with the Hanter-Redemption Management Team to Texas for Hurricane Harvey, North Carolina for Hurricane Florence, and then Longwood University for the for the vice president debate, and then the Eastern Shore for the Northampton tornado. He's also an ICS instructor, and finally, he's a part of the International and National Training Representative for Guardian Preparedness and Response and Tactical Training in Georgia, and the Urban Training Center in Indiana. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Andy, who's going to discuss the response for Virginia Beach's tornado.
Good morning, everyone. Just a little clarification. The last part of it was when I'd gone out to the Guardian Center in Georgia and the Mass Attack Training Center out in Indiana. Those were international type events where we had blended our IMT along with the military of Virginia, of Canada, and Australia together. So it was just a big exercise that we were part of. So, all right. So as you see from the slides, we were part of the Great Neck tornado. All right. So something about Virginia Beach. We have concerts, big venues for everything. We do a robust type of build out for it. I write the incident action plans or event action plans beforehand for these things. So what we do is we have meetings twice a week beforehand to build up to where we get everybody at the table. We get all the fire representatives, police, EMS, public works, public utilities, everybody together to where we know what's going on. So when we have these big events coming in, we know exactly what's going on. We've got our staging areas set up. We've got traffic control plans for like something in the water, how big that was, where we had to utilize a traffic plan and bus people in from the amphitheater in. So we had egress and ingress coming in back and forth from the whole areas. So we had public safety dealing with that. So once we have these big events, we had the biggest one when the tornado hit, which was something in the water. Fortunately, it's a good and bad thing about the weather that for us, we were downplaying our staffing a little bit because of the rains. They had already started canceling the shows that day. So you'll see that we had a full incident build out, a level 2 excavation, which is the key partners will be in the room. We won't have everybody coming in from everywhere. We will have the only ones, like we'll have a police representative, we'll have the fire, EMS representatives there. And for big events like that, we reach out to our National Weather Service locality up in Wakefield. We actually have 2 members that were on scene and on staff with us in our EOC at the time, which ended up being pretty crucial. The next parts of it is the JIC activation. Of course, or Virginia Beach, we're a huge city, one of the largest in Virginia. So publicity, our PIOs were there as well. We had a separate JIC set up on a separate floor. So we have a nice flow of communication back and forth. The base camp that we had several of them you could see on the bottom right-hand slide, that was inside the convention center. That's where we had all of our utility vehicles for deployments in case something happened and for getting people to and from the concert venues. And of course, the staging areas, pretty self-explanatory. So the timeline for this, like I said, I was at the command post at the EOC for the whole day, getting up to 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, we had made the announcement that the concerts were not going to go on, so we started downsizing a little bit. We still had key players on scene in our command post, and of course down on the scene of the Something in the Water, because the concert was just being canceled and we still had to get everybody in and out. So I had just left at 5 o'clock. So if you see the timeline that the storm started approaching, we got a notification at 5:24 that we had severe weather was rolling in. At 5:47, we got the tornado warning. That is the warning from the guys that are sitting right in our EOC that says these are favorable conditions for what we have coming in. Everybody take note. Now, the big slide, next one is the next time, is at 5:48, 1 minute later. We had real-time National Weather Service representatives in our EOC telling us that this just developed. Within 1 minute, we had a tornado. We had a tornado on the ground, and we started getting calls to our ECCS almost immediately about debris, trees, cars being thrown all over the place, which it ended up being an F3 tornado. So we've got that part of it. So basically, the good thing is we had a good, robust build out for our Something in the Water Festival. So we transitioned. We still had the festival going on, so we took a couple people and said, okay, you're focusing on the festival. Now we've got this disaster, the tornado going on. So we shifted our focus to the tornado then and started to find out what's going on there. So we started getting the police and fire representatives were out on scene, start getting what we call dashboard surveys going on, where you look out the windshield, seeing what's going on, what is the damage, how bad is it, and then we start fielding the calls for ECCS, and that way we get to see what the track was. At that time, we had the National Weather Service telling us where it had started at and where it had gone to. But as you can see, it was an EF3, 145 mile per hour winds was the peak winds that they had registered for it. Went 4.5 miles. If you see at the very bottom in the middle slide, where it's the EF1, it started over Lynn Haven Bay as like a type of water spout, and then quickly formed into a nice robust tornado with the high winds. I hate to say that this was a perfect tornado for us in a perfect situation and scenario, because there isn't anyone for damage wise, but for a tornado to go through and to damage these many houses, you see we had 7 destroyed houses, 25 major houses. And we've got slides up here that'll show you the pictures of these things. To have that amount of damage on a Sunday at 5:30, we didn't have one injury. Not one splinter, not one cut, not one Band-Aid, not one missing dog. Remarkable. Where it came ashore from Lynn Haven Bay was right over here in the Great Neck area. It just missed a full rec center. And I mean just missed, I mean by about 500 yards. It was to the west, about 500 yards from the rec center, which of course on a Sunday afternoon, beautiful day, people are all in there, just missed it. Went through a neighborhood, went over a park, which was great because there was there's no houses there. It picked up, it went over top of a bunch of other houses, went across Great Neck, and then touched back down again in the neighborhood and went right on top of a golf course. You couldn't have picked a better thing. You know, the center of it went up the golf course. Of course, it was, you know, a couple hundred yards wide, so it was affecting the houses around the outside of it. Went across the golf course, hit the houses at the very end, picked up again, went across Broad Bay, hit a very small neighborhood, which is at the very top up here, which is only one street where it says EF1, and then went through Falls Cape or First Landing State Park, and then onto a Fort Story. The strength of this storm and the possibilities, if it would have hit, you know, a couple hundred yards to the right, to the east, would have been devastation for a lot of things. Not only just for the houses itself, but by the compactness. The neighborhood that it went through, a pretty predominant neighborhood, bigger, well-built houses made out of brick, ones that could withstand these. Like I said, we had a lot of people in these houses that, you know, not a scratch on them. They were picked up and twisted, some of them on their foundations, moved back 6 feet, the whole house were, not a scratch. If it would have hit, like I said, a couple hundred yards or half a mile down to the east, it would have gone through a blue collar neighborhood and hit a lot more schools. There's a couple elementary schools and the high schools over there as well, and it would have taken out the rec center. So we couldn't have asked for a better tornado, dare I say such things, that hit us, but that opened up our eyes for what the possibilities could be. So it had 111 residential homes were affected, 252 school students were affected by it, the ones that were in the neighborhood. And we'll get into more stories about that in a minute. So you see, just missed the rec center, Cox High School, and all the elementary and middle schools. And of course, with the more predominant housing, they've got the newer housing, the new neighborhoods, all the power lines and such are all underground. So we didn't have to worry about that situation either of trees hitting power lines. So you can see from the pictures, just the devastation of what we're looking at. This was one of the brick houses, the one in the middle that I was talking about. That is actually their main bedroom, master bedroom up there. The bed and everything is still sitting up there. You can see all the destruction of all the houses. So what we did is when we first came in, we saw where the rec center was. The high school was right there close by. We took over the high school, the back section of it, being that it was a Sunday evening. We got in, we started ramping up our deployment staging areas there. That was only probably about, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile from the path of the disaster for the tornado. So we were close by and we had a great spot where we could work from. The reception center that we did was at the recreation center. We built it out to start with because we didn't know. You know, we'd never been hit by a tornado like this. We see how far the path was. We saw what the initial destruction was. We didn't know what was going on, so we planned for everything. So we started with a family reunification center. Then as time went on, we found out that we didn't have any missing family members. So we changed that over to the recreation center. We changed that to the family reception center where they could come in and get information. So local declaration was made, as you see, and then our short-term recovery efforts, I've gone down to most of those. We did start an email address activation. Everybody's got technologies. Everybody's cell phones were working. We activated our CERT team, which is our civilian response team. We got them out there going door to door with flyers, little scan code on there, which would have all the information that they would need about whether they needed food, shelter, tarps. You know, we didn't deploy a full drop system where we would have food and all that stuff. We did have the Mercy chefs come in. They would deliver with golf carts. They would deliver meals out to the incident, to the location, so nobody went hungry. The tarps were out there rather quickly. That was one of the situations that we found out that I'll address in a few minutes. So we also did signs. We would go out and put the little scan cone signs in front because some people weren't home, some people were on vacation, some people, you know, saw it, got out, had other places to go to, had other family members. So when they came back, we had all the signs set up there. All they had to do was go up with their cell phones, take a picture of it, and it would download straight in there, and they knew exactly what to do, where to go, all the phone numbers that they could do. The city was nice enough to automatically waive all the permit fees which that was a big process that it would get up with the contractors. That was another part of it, that the contractors could go ahead and get in there and start work quickly. The inspectors would come out. They didn't have to have the full inspection and the full build out plans like you would normally for corrections on houses and stuff like that for fixing them. They would start and it would come out and they would deploy more people to go out and look to see what they're doing and approve them as they're going on. We tried to get this up and running as quickly as possible, so they waived the fees as well, like I was saying. We had VIPs, of course, the governors and all the people coming in, so we took them around and saw what was going on. And we did that also to help push the numbers to show them the devastation, to see what was going on so we could get a better push from the state. Marine debris removal. That ended up being a big pain in the butt because, you know, you've got Broad Bay, you've got Lynn Haven Bay, you've got the little estuary, little tributaries that go up in between it. You know, who owns what part of the property? And I found out that the debris, it's going to matter, depends on whether it's stuck in the ground or not. Is it floating? It's one person's problem. If it's moored into the ground at a shallower part, it's somebody else's problem. So that was one of the things that we had to work through. And then, of course, then it went over to the Seashore State Park or First Landing State Park. It's a state park. We're assisting them as much as we can, but it's a state park as well. So we've got the state entity coming in and we're working with them as well. And our marine boats going out there to the state parks to try to assess what's going on with their situation on the banks. So volunteer donations management was huge because everybody wants to help. We set that up at one of the local churches where we had the Mercy Chef set up. There wasn't a lot of people asking for help for clothes wise and stuff like that, because if you see a lot of the tornadoes and stuff ripped through the middle of it, but a lot of the bottom part of the houses, so they had clothes and those type of things. So it wasn't a big need for that. And like I said before, it was a more predominant neighborhood. So it was the need of the money, the cash flow wasn't there to start with. So like I said, it could have been a lot worse. Next one, that developed a long-term strategy or midterm, which was the 7-day incident action plan. That's where we write it out. Of course, we always plan for the next day, the next period. So we start to figure out what we're going to do for disaster preparedness response. How do we get in? We've got our Crowder Gulf was one of our debris management companies. So we start to call them, see about getting them in to do an assessment of how much tonnage of trees and debris that we have. We had RVs, we had travel trailers, we had catamarans strewn all over the place. So, you know, it's just not the yard debris that you see. Of course, we started to do door to door. Luckily for our storm, it was only 4.5 feet long. That's including all of the water in the park and everything. So you see, we had 150 round up houses. We can go door to door, and we did that on purpose. We wanted to let them know that Virginia Beach cared, that we had the staff, we got the CERT people to go out, and we knocked on every door. People that didn't answer, they got a flyer on there. We made a note, and we came back. That's the flyers, the text alert groups, the same thing for traffic and recovery. Traffic was a big thing because the main road right there at Kings Grant is really, or Great Neck, is really busy. So we had a robust traffic plan where we had to slow them down. So we ended up making the lanes down from 3 lanes down to 2 lanes down to 1 lane to get them to slow down, because we had also all of the first responders going back and forth between the from the high school and the rec center where we had our command staff built up to the scene. So we wanted to make it as safe as possible. Also from the kids that were living in across their neighborhood, that made it safe for them to go across. And of course, we had town meetings for residents. We opened it up quickly. A lot of people wanted to know what we could do to help. You know, it's all new to us. You know, how many tornadoes do we have in this area? You know, anybody know? A lot more than what we know of in the state. I was surprised when I started doing research on this after the fact. We do have a lot of tornadoes that do hit in the state. They just don't hit main populated areas like this. But now, of course, we know we do. And of course, on my bio, I responded up to the Eastern Shore for the Northampton tornado. If you remember that one about 12 years ago, where it went through Cherrystone Campground, hit the interstate, turned around and decided to go right back through the same campground again. So tornadoes definitely have a mind of their own. And of course, the long-term recovery, where we did disaster response and recovery stuff. We dedicated, like I said, a lot of the team members to focus that on them and them only. That way we knew that they had the type of response and the assistance that they needed to get their lives back to normal. Weekly newsletters were sent out, recovery websites, all within the city. It doesn't take long to put something on the website that people can go to. It's that same scan code. If you were affected by the tornado, these are the numbers that you can call. These are the people that you can reach out to. These are your options. And of course, our community meetings, CHKD came in and started talking with the kids. They went to the elementary schools, the middle schools, the high schools to find out the trauma part of what these kids may have gone through. And of course, the Catholic Charities, natural disaster case managers, like we said, we set up. The pictures that we have here is from the rec center, where we've got their tornado recovery inside. It shows them exactly where to go. Generators and all set up. The Mercy Chefs up in the top right-hand side. The middle one here is our Potter's Pit. We actually have a spot that's predetermined for our debris and disaster response materials that'll go out. The Potter's Pit is strategically placed in Virginia Beach in the middle of the city. I don't know if that's by choice, but I think that was a great option, a great idea. So obviously that's my boss's idea to run with that one. On the sides here, you'll see that we had little cards made up that we would walk by, we'd put them on the cars, we'd hand them out hand to hand. So everybody had all the information that they needed. And of course, our takeaways. You want to make an effort to do this right the first time and every time. Next time, it could be you. You have to have that type of empathy when you're dealing with a situation like this. When's the next time a tornado is going to hit Virginia Beach? Hopefully, I can just hopefully say never, because I don't want to have to go through this again. But what if it does? We learn from these things. We prepare. Virginia Beach, we're up to a 10-person emergency management group now. So we do have representatives for pre-planning, for the academies, for training on the disaster response and recovery. We got one for mitigation. So, we're looking at this as a holistic approach that we want to be able to come in and be ready for these things. Next one is don't focus on the incident, but like I was just saying, just plan for the process. You don't know what it's going to hit or where it's going to hit, but as long as you have these contracts, so we're redeveloping our debris contract now that we know what it looks like and how much a tonnage is and how much land and debris and stuff that we have, to where we're going to put it. The challenges, permits, building inspections, that was an easy one that came up quickly. The fire department, the fire marshal's office, the police department, the fire department, when they first get on scene, that's where our first initial damage assessments go through. The big problem that we had, a challenge when we started looking at numbers, is, which one do we go after? We all know how the market is right now with housing. Me as a citizen, I want to go by market value on what my house is, right? Because the numbers are way up here right now. But what's the actuality number? Is it replacement? How do we come up with replacement costs? Who's the one that's coming up with these numbers? And those are the ones that we got to start battling back and forth to figure out what numbers we're going to go at. What day are we going to take these numbers? Because with the fluctuation of lumber prices, you see what some of the houses that look like. So that was a big thing. When you go for FEMA money, when you have to hit thresholds, if you've ever come across that, you have to have a certain amount before they'll make these declarations of how bad it is and how much money you can get. It does not take into account of insured houses. Once they start talking to insurance, that number starts going down what you have. So it's hard to hit that threshold number because FEMA's not going to come in and write you a check for $100,000 for your house when you've got $800,000 coverage, because then you just pocket that other $800,000 and only $200,000. So they take into account the insurance. A lot of people in their houses that have been in a house for a long time, when you buy your house originally, your homeowner, your mortgage company is the one that says you will have this amount of insurance because they're the ones that actually own the house at that time and you're paying them. So they mandate that you have insurance. What happens if you've been in your house for a long time and you paid your house off? We've come across people that didn't have insurance because they didn't think about it. It was just that it was always included in your mortgage payment. Now you don't have that mortgage payment anymore, and now you don't have the insurance payment either. You get how many pieces of junk mail do you get a day from insurance companies or term life insurance or all these things? You just throw them away. One of those may have been your insurance company saying, "Hey, we're not getting the money from the your mortgage company anymore because you paid off your house." So we had people that weren't insured. Those are the ones that got the benefits because they didn't have insurance. Or what about ones that were underinsured? You buy your house 15 years ago at one price. Look at the market on housing. It's gone up drastically. So if I have a house that's $400,000 and I bought my insurance and I had it covered $400,000, well, what's it worth now? 750, 600,000, whatever it may be. Now you got to come out of pocket for that difference. So you've got to constantly look at your insurance coverage. And that's one of the things that we were battling back and forth, was trying to find out what they were insured for, how much money they had, and what we could get them and benefit them. And that's when we had the SBA come in, which is the Small Business Association. The name Small Business is a little bit off throwing. I was like, well, why is the Small Business Association coming in? That's all residential. They're one of the largest lenders for individuals for housing as well. So it's something to know. So that was a nice surprise for me to learn. The contractors, big problem with the contractors we had was, it happened at like 5 o'clock. Hey, I've got this damage. People are calling in their friends, their buddies that have tree services. We had tree services showing up that night to get into the neighborhood to start working on the houses. Luckily, all of the electricity was underground, so we didn't have a lot of electrical problems. The individual houses we did, but part of the storm knocked out the electricity when it took out transformers and such on, throughout the blocks when it started shorting out and stuff. So a lot of the power was out. But we also had natural gas leaks. And we had contractors showing up that night and that early next morning to do work. They've got gas-powered chainsaws and all sorts of stuff. And I walk up and I'm just like, what's going on over here? We've got Virginia Natural Gas working right beside somebody with a chainsaw. Those type of situations. So that was a big problem that we had to have the security. We had the police step it up, make sure we get everybody out until we do a full assessment with Virginia Natural Gas, where they've come through and made sure that it was safe. So contractors are always good for the money. You've always got the what we call the fly-by-night contractors. They aren't insured. They're coming in, they're cutting stuff. And a part of the big problem with the contracts was, yes, I want you to come in. I want you to take this tree stuff down out of my house, get it out of my bedroom, get it out of my backyard or whatever. Part of the contracts that should be with the reputable companies are they will haul it away. They've got the big chippers out front. They've got the loaders. They've got the claw loaders, and they'll take it away. A lot of these smaller companies, hit quick and get out. They come in, they cut everything out, they haul it out to the street and leave it. So then it became a huge problem with navigation through the streets for transportation. So we had to start getting on each individual company. So then we got part of our CERT team, part of our emergency management team would go through and we'd start taking pictures and recording exactly what house had what company working with them. So we could get in touch with them to let them know, hey, it's part of your contracts with this stuff. You do not dump this stuff on the street. Because we would go out one day and this part of the street would be clear. We'd come out the next day and now it's full again. And people didn't want it stacked on their lawns. So where did they put it? In the streets. So now you're doing this little S-turn thing, going chicane, weaving in and out of the streets, trying to get back and forth with our large trucks to try to pick up all this stuff because of the contractors that want to get in quickly and get the money and get out. The next one we had the heavy tree canopy, like I was talking about, marine debris, touched upon that already. When you go in between a lot of the houses, they've got the water runoff. You've got your drainage system. Over there right by the water, they'll take an easement, like you've got your first 6 feet of your lawn, 6 or 7 feet, I guess, depending on what city it is, that you own it, you have to take care of it. But the city has a right to come up and do work on it, those sections. Well, they have them over here that are in between the houses. And that's where the water would run off and go down to the little tributaries in the back because they all had little docks back there, and that's where the water runoff would. Well, when a tree falls in that area, whose is it? That was a big debate that went back and forth. A lot of the tree companies would come up and say, no, we're not touching that. That's city property. We're not allowed to come on city property. Well, it wasn't city property. It was the owner's property of each house. but whose is it? Depends on where the tree came from. You know, it's one of those things. If it's my tree that falls in my neighbor's yard and they cut it off right where the city thing is, I'm sorry, but that's your debris that's in your yard. You know, so we had those type of problems coming up as well between the citizens. So cell phone coverage was down for a little bit. We did get in touch with Verizon. They came out with their packs, set up a new I guess we would say a mobile hotspot for everybody to use. Big generator style ones that come in, so that alleviated that situation. And of course, our VDM and crisis track. There's no good way to submit protective measures. VDM has their way of submitting their paperwork. It goes in. Each individual city has theirs. So we have a robust situation where we have our city where we do it through crisis track, and then we have the VDM a way of doing it as well. So we have to do, it's kind of a duplicity where we have to duplicate our efforts, but whatever we have to do to get it in, we're going to make those efforts. So we actually had two people doing it. One would pass it off to the next person, make sure that it happened, and we got the right paperwork submitted. Okay, so any questions from anybody in the room? I'm not that good. Come on. Yes. Yes. Okay, that would just be our regular informational brochures. Say you have damage for your houses, we would have our permits number for Virginia Beach permits. If you have problems with the fire department or gas, we'd have Virginia Natural Gas. We'd have a whole list of phone numbers on there, and procedures as well. That if you could call this number, tell them that I've been damaged in the tornado. This is my address, and then they would verify that to know that we don't charge you permit information, and would tell you about permitting, about what you could do to make it as quickly as possible. And we'd also tell you where you could get other further help. Like Mercy Chefs are going to be set up at this hospital, at this church. That our Family Reunification or Assistance Center is at the Great Neck Recreation Center. And if you need further help, leave your name and number, and that way one of us from emergency management would give you a call. Anyone else? Sure.
Along those same lines with the QR code, did you guys generate your own? Was it your comms folks? How did you get that? Did you go to QR Codes R Us or?
That I do not know. That is beyond my capabilities and scope. But whatever it was, of course, it was still up and running as far as I know of today. Gotcha. That they could still, if they have that piece of paper, they could take a picture of it. It's still up and running. So if they still have any further questions, but I don't know where they originate from. That's IT side that I am not an IT person.
Gotcha. Also with requesting resources, did you go through WebEOC or just?
Yes. Yes. No. Crisis Track was what we did for us for our disaster response and our assessments. Right. And then we went to WebEOC to put in assessments and requests from the state.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody online? Oh, I'm sorry. One more from in the house.
Yes, I want to inquire for the National Weather Service. Did they ever track down why some people didn't get the alert for the tornado that was in the affected area?
It happened so fast. It happened within 1 minute. The thunderstorm watch went out, but as soon as the tornado alert, that the conditions were favorable for a tornado, within 1 minute it hit. So if you can get them on your phone that quickly, I have no idea, but I'm sure technology, they were probably in the middle of the tornado when the alerts were going out. It hit so quickly.
Andy?
Yes.
After the storm, I understand you opened up some rec centers. How did that work out for the community?
Actually, we had the community kept, that's a weird isolated thing, that tornadoes are so compact that they only affect a certain amount of people, and that's in the track of it. The neighbors across the street from where they weren't affected or one block over went about their regular lives. They were in the rec center. The rec center was open. We never closed it. We just opened up a couple side rooms that they had for what we needed for assistance, but we really didn't have anybody coming in. It was one of those, like I said, a perfect storm of hitting a place that they didn't need much help, that they didn't reach out to us directly as in a unification center like that. And anybody online have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I would like to request your information. This is Ed Hanrahan with Virginia Natural Gas. So I reached out to a few people trying to get your information so we can help staff the EOC and for the next emergency. So you could
Okay.
reach out to me or whatever.
By all
That'd be
means.
perfect.
I'm sure Daniel Hudson can put it in the slideshow and all the stuff in there. I'll have all my contact information attached to the whatever information y'all send out for this.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ed will make sure that you get his contact information there. I'm sorry, I was trying to get the slide here working. Did you talk about the Family Assistance Center and how you needed to set that up with your staff and what kind of response that you had with that? I know we have some people a part of the assistance center and our shelters.
Sure. Yeah, we definitely brought in our partners with our sheltering. We had separate tables set up and labeled for them for when they came in. But like I said, nobody came into the rec center for help with sheltering. Donation was the one that we did, but we decided to move that over to the church. And a bunch of people were asking, what can I do to help? They've updated their pictures from when they flew over, and you could see that it's updated where all the destruction is on there now, where they took the pictures just afterwards, where you still see RVs flipped over in other people's yards and all the destruction in the houses before they were all rebuilt or cleaned up. So if you want to get an idea of what it looked like, just go over there. That is on Google Earth. But we were thinking that it was going to be 45, 60 days. It was going to be the long haul type of thing. And within 10 days, we were standing down. We would still have our assistance centers up and running for anybody that was calling in or needing assistance or calling 311 for us in Virginia Beach. You can call that, and it's a dispatcher that'll take your questions. And so we had them directed with their papers right there. So we had that built up. But within 10 days, we were already standing down, and we had a huge tent city built up for the first responders, for public works, for public utilities, where they could all go in and do their work and all that stuff. And within 7 days, that was coming down. That it was so quickly that having the proper contracts with like debris management and stuff like that, like we had, they came in and got it out quickly. It was really mind-boggling. We had no idea it was going to happen that quickly. So, any other questions, comments?
Any Virginia Department of Health, did y'all respond to that any from a local level? Any issues there that you saw, or, you know?
I don't believe Virginia Beach Health responded. I don't think they were called.
Yep.
Again, I don't necessarily see that we had a particular role.
No,
There was
not
no
one threat.
shelter. There were obviously no fatalities.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that was our big thing was we were, once we first got the original windshield surveys and on the damage assessments, we started thinking about which shelter is going to be close enough, which ones do we need. We started calling all the right people within the city and said, okay, this is what we're going to have. Stand by to stand by. We're going to make the call real soon. And, 24 hours, nobody had, there was no need for it, which was really surprising.
Talk about the sort of response that HRD might have had.
Yeah, I would have just joined the team right after, but I do know that there were pump stations, the sewage and stuff in that area. I don't know exactly how bad it was, but I'm sure there had to be some type of backflow that had to be handled immediately. And with the trees being down, you talked about the power lines. Sometimes it's hard to access those stuff if you have debris in the way. So I'm sure HRC had to respond to some sewage backup.
No other response, Scott.
Yes.
Well, in the damage, and how do they work with the city and the cleanups?
Well, we pretty much worked with them on the water part of it, get access because they don't have any boats nearby, but we have a robust section of fire response boats and police boats that we were able to go out there and give them assistance that we could by going out and making sure that the waterways were open from the boat ramps. Because like I said, the city pretty much returned to normal pretty quickly if you weren't affected. People didn't even know, we'd have people running by, doing their jogging, doing little bike rides through the neighborhoods that we had to stop because, they weren't affected by it and wanted to see it. So we would basically assist them on the water side of it. We couldn't go in because it's state property, that's on their side to handle, but we could do whatever we needed to do and assist them out in the water. And of course it went across, like I said, it went across to Fort Story. So it did take out a small roofing section of one of their barracks or something like that, but they were all self-contained as well. So we assisted them in any way that we could, but it was very minimal on their side.
So as a follow-up on damage assessment, do you have to do the report alongside with the state parks and the military and combine it with your city report, or is it all
It's
filed
completely
separately?
separate.
Any post-event lessons learned that you could share?
Yeah, and I don't want to do it again. No, but no, it's one of those things you don't know what's going to hit you next. We just did a study that we're starting up our Virginia Beach incident management team, our own team within Virginia Beach. It's going to be built up to a type 3 team, which is the middle tier team that we want to be able to be self-supportive. And we really saw that in this aspect. So those type of things is what we just plan for. That's my big thing as a response and recovery person. I'm the doom and gloom guy that I plan for worst case scenario, and that way nothing's a surprise. From what we just saw with some of the storms that hit the rock concert. I don't know if y'all knew about that stuff. That was out in the western part of the state. Storms roll in that Thursday night. Apparently they didn't have a robust EM or any type of emergency plans for that. Big storms rolled in, tents were flying everywhere, debris was up and everywhere and everything, and they ended up canceling the show 2 days. So the last 2 days they ended up canceling it. And the big Running Man, or what's the other big one out there where it rained and rained and rained and everybody got stuck and nobody could get out. So it's one of those type of things that they weren't planning on that. So that's my type of doom and gloom when I'm at work. I think about the worst case scenarios and what we can do. We've got trigger charts and all that stuff for weather that we are a no nonsense. You will follow our trigger charts. It's been vested by our legal team that says that at 8 miles, when lightning strikes, this is what will happen. At 6 miles, this is what will happen. We don't have any type of leeway with our organizations that come in. It's our city. We're going to take care of our people. So we have these things in plans already. And of course, we have the centers that we have for reunification or evacuation centers and all that stuff. So we make sure that we try to plan for everything.
Andy, can you touch, since we got a couple of 911 personnel, can you touch how that affected your dispatch or what kind of calls, I mean, frantic calls you probably got and the call volume going on?
You can imagine, that the tornado warning goes out and within 30 seconds, people are calling and saying my house, I'm not in Kansas anymore, Toto, there's a tree through my house and those type of things. So, being 911 dispatchers, they do a wonderful job. They step up quickly. They know what they're doing. And then once that hit, they knew they weren't going home that night. It's that type of thing where they know they're going to be calling in extra people just for the amount of calls that are going to be coming in the volumes.
So one thing unique about this incident is that it affected a small portion of your city.
Yes.
Although, I mean, I'm not making it seem little. I mean, it was a significant event for those impacted. But what I'm saying is that those who aren't impacted, it's like normal business for them. And I know sometimes that when there's some incidents like that, it's upsetting my daily routine.
Right.
Right. So I know that that can be a cause of concern when you've got this major incident that your city is responding to, but there's people who aren't affected who are upset at your response because you've got the street closed down. I saw that on the news,
right,
where people were saying, don't go that way. And they were upset because they couldn't get to their normal location.
Right. So yeah, it was rather interesting. Like I said, that it was a great case scenario that the tornado went across a golf course. So it was very little damage for that aspect, but the trees on the golf course, of course, went down and it was a big destruction. Or the golf course, they made a special 9-hole. You can only play the 9-hole, not the back hole 9 anymore, because you can't. But we did have people showing up saying, do you mind if I play through? And it's like, oh yeah, I mind, that type of thing. But it was their routine, and they wanted to see it as well and still get in their golf strokes. And they just had more hazards. They've been playing that hole so many times that now it's a little different. They don't have to hook it left around the tree. They got to hook it with a pitch wedge over the tree, because the tree is now laying down, those type of things. But we did have influx of people that were coming in and doing that. And then we also had to have a talk with the schools about getting their kids to and from their homes. Where are the bus drops? Now the bus drops are outside of that. So now we had to have emergency times where we would let the tree cutters know that from this time to this time, no heavy machinery were going to and from the front yards to the backyards because the kids were walking down the streets. So we would have those type of limits put in for the safety of the children. Yeah, it changed a little bit of a very small, as you said, a very small member of our community. But the biggest complaints were traffic. When are we going to open up the main roads again? Going down, the 45-mile-an-hour thoroughfares that people like to call the NASCAR stretch over there, where it actually do 55 and 60, that we were knocking down to 15 and 20. That was the big complaints, is when are you going to open this back up? Because I can't get to work on time.
If I can chirp in on the back end of that one of the houses that we delivered the information to, the guy, after we handed in the information about who he could call and what he could do, he says, is the golf course still open?
Yeah.
And can I get over there to play golf this afternoon? And his house had just been hit.
Right.
I mean, a whole different perspective than I would have ever imagined.
Right. Yep.
And it's difficult because, for some of us who are working in the city as well, you're responding to the incident and you're adding resources to helping that community clean up, getting back to a new normal, but you also have your other responses as well, your other city functions that your community is expecting to continue. So I even take that a step further. Think about your organization. I know that this is a tragic incident that happened in the city of Virginia Beach, but think about a tornado occurring at your location, striking a facility or a building or things like that. Think about your response as an emergency responder or emergency manager or disaster recovery for your organization. How would that look for you? These are the reasons why we have these meetings, so you can hear other organizations, other government entities, how they responded, some of the lessons learned that they had, so that can help you go back and craft your plans of how you respond regarding those instances. So, Andy, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time of coming over here, talking about the lessons learned from this. And I'm so thankful that nobody was injured. There were no fatalities. That's such a miracle. And I know Losing a home can be upsetting. It's very difficult, but I'm so thankful that lives were not lost. So we appreciate you taking the time coming out here with us today. So with that, I want to go ahead and present you with a certificate of appreciation.
Well, thank you.
And a coin from the Department of Emergency Management and Response for taking the time coming out today. So thank you so much, sir. Can we get a round of applause?
Well, it's always a pleasure to come back to Norfolk. I was born here. I was reared here. I went to all of my schools, graduated from Granby High School, go Comets. So then, of course, got into the police department. So I served here for almost 25 years. So, to come back and to help what may be my neighbors and friends and family that I still have in Norfolk, it's second nature for me. So anything I can do, of course, to come back and help, I'm always here. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir. So we'll definitely move into our second part of our meeting here, which is a time of connection, of community, conversation, of hearing how things are going within your organization. Are there any upcoming events that you would like us to know about or anybody else to be a part of or aware of? Some type of training that you're attending that you think other people might benefit from? So this is your time. This is where we offer an opportunity for discussion, to be able to have those conversations so we can take our emergency management knowledge even further. So for those who are online, I know it's difficult to call on each one that are online. So Scott is monitoring the chat. So if you do have something, you can go ahead and put your name in the chat or say, hey, Scott, I've got something, and then we'll call upon you online. But for those in the room, we'll just go around the room really quickly. If you have something, please go ahead and let us know. Any job openings that you would like for other people to hear about, because we all have family members who are looking for opportunities. So, so this is your time. So we'll go ahead and start. Tonight, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the city is hosting a flood ready workshop. We had one last week over at the East Ocean View Rec Center. And we have presentations from Jim Reddick, who is the Director of Emergency Preparedness and Response. He talked about the emergency preparedness, how to be prepared for hurricanes, and some of the software that we use to communicate with our community regarding emergencies, such as our Norfolk Alert, our wireless emergency alert, our EAS system as well. And then you had Tristan Barnes, who is the floodplain manager for the city. She talked about the importance of having flood insurance, what to do if your home is flooded, how to file a claim. And if you don't have flood insurance, why you need flood insurance and how long it will actually take for that flood insurance to kick in. And then finally, she talked about the community rating system, which we're at a 5, and the community rating system is a process to where the city has to show that we are doing X, Y, and Z in order to bring that community rating system up to decrease the amount of flood insurance that our community has to pay through their flood insurance program. So it's a great opportunity to hear those. And then finally, we have Kyle, who's the Deputy of Resilience. He talks about the utilization of how the city works with the Waze app and how it imports information of flooded streets. So how people can navigate during those storms so they don't get stuck in flooded waters. Because larger cities always say, what's the old saying about flooding? What is it? Someone say it? What about driving your vehicle? Turn around, don't drown, right? So turn around, don't drown. A lot of larger cities say that because you just don't know how deep the water is. And here in Norfolk, we know we have nuisance flooding a lot. We know where our roadways are, so we like to say, don't wreck your ride, because if you go through that water, you're definitely going to ruin your engine. So it's a great opportunity to hear those presentations. It's virtual tonight. So if you would like to attend, all you have to do is go to norfolk.gov/flood-ready. The link will be there, and it starts at 6:30 tonight. It should last about an hour, hour and a half. So that is it for my side. Scott, do you have anything from your side, sir, before we go around the room?
Just community events coming up. We do have Community Connect coming up in October 28th with the city over at Harbor Park. It's a big city event with all the departments on the second concourse of Harbor Park, and it's giving back to the community. Anybody that wants to be a vendor or share in that aspect, please let us know, and we'll get you connected with the right party. Looking at the weather, you know, it's getting dark a little bit later. It's at 7:30, but we still got another month or so to go until daylight savings time, which is November 5th. So any outdoor work, you know, that's when it's going to start getting darker as soon as you get off work at 5. So be prepared for that. On a high note, our Norfolk CERT won an award, Uplifting Community Award for organizational support throughout the city. So that was a nice gesture or a nice award to win for Norfolk CERT this past Saturday. Our office is standing ready and prepared, the Office of Emergency Management. So if you guys have any concerns, any needs, please reach out to Daniel, myself, or Tony, or Karen, or Jim, or just reach out to eoc-plans@norfolk.gov, and one of us will get it out of all 5 of us. So that's all I got right now. Dan, you got anything?
Always recruiting lifeguards in Norfolk. Beach lifeguards come this spring. But one thing is, as we're approaching summer next year, if anybody has a need for beach safety presentations, water safety presentations, even trainings, I'll be in these meetings. You can always approach me.
Thank you. Good. Got no fishing tips. Just state who you are so people know.
Hi, yeah, I'm John Cook with the Eastern Region of VDH. Kind of filling in for Eve today, so maybe Michelle has a little bit more. She's online. They have completed their Project Public Health Ready application, and that has been submitted. So probably just today, they are being evaluated, and we should hear back from that around Veterans Day. And I'm not sure when your last meeting was, but probably since then. There's a new health director in Norfolk, Dr. Susan Gerwa. I've met her. We had the quarantine station folks in from Dulles 2 or 3 weeks ago. Had a great time meeting them. So there is a new health director in Norfolk.
Thank you, sir. Any upcoming flu clinics that you know about? I know that was we're getting into flu season, so just kind of spreading the word on that.
The flu season is coming. To my knowledge, we are. Maybe Michelle can clarify. I know Office of Emergency Preparedness is not doing flu clinics this year, but there is chargeable for fee flu vaccine, as well as COVID vaccine should be arriving. Last I heard it, VDH had not seen it yet, but it should be arriving anytime now.
Thank you, sir. One of our team members has actually been at home for the last few days with the flu, and she texted me this morning pleading people to get the flu shot because she says it is not fun at all. So wanted to put that out there. Maybe it's starting early. Go ahead, Scott.
So in the past, you had the drive-by flu clinic with the health department and MRC. Is that going to happen this fall or this?
Not going to happen. I do believe that some of the health systems are doing flu clinics, non-chargeable flu clinics. But I don't believe VDH is going to be doing those this fall.
So there's no more. I talked to one of our doctors, and from what I was told, there's not free clinics anymore. So if you need a shot, you have to go to your doctor or pharmacy. Is that different?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, with COVID, you got the free shots over at the clinic. Yes. So is there a place where we're able to get free shots anymore, or is it all?
Your insurance will be billed. So COVID vaccine previously was free. The federal government paid for its development and the vaccine itself. They are transitioning to a chargeable model. So what was previously a free vaccination will now be billed to your insurance, or then some other arrangement would need to be made to cover that cost. So it's not free, and COVID vaccine is no longer free.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, John. Free or not, everybody should get those shots.
David Cantwitz with the Red Cross. Want to make everyone self-conscious of the West Nile virus is now here. So you need to be cautious, especially during the dusk and dawn times, and when you're outdoors. Also, the regatta race, I don't know if everyone heard, because that affects Norfolk. That has all been canceled. All the events for this weekend have been canceled for that. That's all I have.
And where was that scheduled at?
Fort Monroe.
Okay, Fort Monroe.
Fort
For
Monroe.
anybody didn't hear, got a race at Fort Monroe has been canceled for this weekend due to the weather coming up.
Yeah, we're supposed to have the post-tropical system that's brewing off the coast of North Carolina, South Carolina this week. So we're expected to receive some moderate rainfall on Friday into Saturday with minor to moderate coastal flooding, 5.4 feet. That's where we stand as of this morning. So for Norfolk, you know that that's going to cause some nuisance flooding. So for our LEPC team, Jim does a fantastic job putting out blog information regarding these storms. So be on the lookout for those regarding this weekend or the end of the week storm. So just be mindful that we are going to see some wet weather and some flooding. Yes, sir.
Gary Lupton, Virginia First, to give you a quick update. Virginia First is the private sector financial group here in Virginia. We're having our first meeting we've been able to have since 2019, believe it or not, next month. And we'll be up in Richmond. We have 43 different financial institutions across Virginia represented at this meeting. Just to kind of give you a teaser, we're going to have FEMA. The director of FEMA is going to be one of our presenters. We'll have the FBI, InfraGard, and the National Weather Service come tell the bankers what they need to be doing nowadays. So a lot of good information. It's all day and it's free, and they get a free lunch. So where else do you want to be?
What date was that?
It's going to be Wednesday, October the 11th. And if anybody has information or wants more information, just come find me.
Thank you, Gary.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lieutenant Johnson with the Coast Guard. We don't have anything coming up immediately. We're working pretty closely with the port for the Marine Firefighting Command School. That'll be in October 23rd to the 27th. And then we're also going to be hosting our Virginia Area Committee meeting. It's the Federal Pollution Response Planning Policy. That'll be November 15th at a location to be determined. But if anybody wants to attend that, please let me know and I'll arrange that. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you. We've got Michael Mink put something online for us just as a heads up. On October 21st, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., there's a Fleet Fest party that they have out there on the happening in the end of the event. Will cause some traffic issues around Naval Station Norfolk. So it's a fun event for them, for the families of those service people, and we thank you for your service, and we will understand that there will be some traffic around on October 20th. So, anyone else online, if you have anything, go ahead, Scott.
Oh, lastly, Andy, you had some very good comments online from the chat. Great information, very informational, very interesting on what you did. So the folks not in this room, they applauded you as well and gave you a great thumbs up for your presentation.
All right. Do we have any other chats online, Scott? Anything else?
No, sir, we're good. All caught up.
All right. Well, that concludes the meeting for today. We appreciate everybody being here, providing their inputs of what's going on in their organizations. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, please email us. We will respond to you and get you connected to the right people if you're asking questions. So we're looking for some presentations for next month. So if you have anything that you would like to be presented on, or have something in your organization that you think would be beneficial for everybody else, please let us know so we can put you on the agenda for October. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude the meeting, and thank you all for joining us today. Thanks.
What I did.